The first column has the 5 factors of intrinsic motivation, and that is autonomy, mastery, purpose, curiosity, and autotelicity. For a lot of my life, I've always chased external things, getting more views on my YouTube channel, getting material objects. And I realized that after you have a certain amount or you achieve a certain amount of goals, it comes to a tipping point where each and every single goal isn't going to necessarily make you happier. It's what economists like to call the law of diminishing returns. So once you hit a certain point, each achievement that you get, it's not going to make you as happy as the first few achievements that you unlocked. And that's the reason why a lot of people, when they make enough money or when they have enough things, they're constantly just chasing more and more and more, but they're not necessarily getting happier. And the reason why is because they're extrinsically motivated. And so I realized that if I wanted to find more alignment, purpose, and not burn myself out, I needed to look within. And that's when I stumbled upon the concept of intrinsic motivation. But the issue that I always had was I thought that intrinsic motivation was just knowing your why and finding your purpose. But then I actually learned that purpose is only one of 5 of the factors of intrinsic motivation. There's autonomy. Do you feel like you have control over your actions and decisions? There's mastery. Do you feel a healthy challenge towards your personal improvement? There's curiosity. Do you feel like you have an insatiable itch to learn more about the thing that you're doing? There is autotelicity. Do you love the activities that you do while working? And then finally, there's purpose. Is there a larger meaning to what you're working on? When I found out about these 5 factors, I then decided to audit my life based on this criteria, and the results completely changed my life. And so I'm going to show you the exact exercise I did, because I have a feeling if you're watching this video and maybe you're struggling to get out of bed because there's nothing that excites you anymore and you're constantly burnt out from chasing more and more and more and more, then I have a feeling you're likely lacking in one or more of these 5 areas. So let's dive into it together. So I have this graph with 4 columns. The first column has the 5 factors of intrinsic motivation, and that is autonomy, mastery, purpose, curiosity, and autotelicity. The second column was where I would write my current reality for each of these 5 factors. Next to it was my desired reality. What would I like to shift into? And the final column was solution. What exactly am I going to change in my life so that I feel more alignment? Now, let me go through each one of these to give you an example of how it might look when you do this life audit. So let's look at autonomy, which is asking myself, do I feel in control of my actions and my decisions? So I had just come back from a 12-month sabbatical. I had dissolved my multiple 7-figure business and I decided to be a solopreneur again. And I thought that this was going to be a great idea. But when I started doing it, I noticed that I was still not happy and there was still something that felt very off. And so when I did this exercise and I asked myself, okay, what is my current reality with being a solopreneur? I realized that the issue was I didn't feel like I had control over my day. I no longer had a social media manager or a team that was helping me. And so what ended up happening was the first thing I did in the morning was check my notifications, and then I would get sucked into responding to every single person. And it got to a place where I was no longer working out. I was no longer putting myself first. And I would blink and all of a sudden it was lunchtime. And so I felt like I had given myself to the internet before I had given myself to myself. And that really bothered me because I felt very unaligned and frazzled all the time. And it got to a place where I was actually afraid to post, specifically Instagram stories, because I knew that if I was going to post a story, then I have to expect that at least 50 people are going to respond to that story, and I'm going to have to spend the next few hours responding to every single DM. Because that was some sort of expectation or pressure that I was putting on myself. And when I did this exercise, I realized that what my desired reality looks like is I still want to connect with the people who watch my content, but it is important for me that I put myself first at the beginning of the day. I need to put my routine first. I need to work out. I need to fuel myself. I need to make my coffee. I need to journal. I need to make sure that I am loving on myself first before I love on other people. I also wanted a reality where engagement comes on my terms. And so when I realized that this was my desired reality, I then started thinking about solutions. What can I do to change my situation? In order for me to take back control of my day, I'm gonna need to turn off my story replies feature. And as much as I miss the conversations that typically happen in Instagram stories, I realize that even if it takes the other person 2 seconds to respond to the story, if 100 people do it, now it's going to take me an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to get back to every single person. And so this has been really great for me because now I feel like I can authentically share on Instagram stories without fear that I'm gonna lose control over my day. And not only this, when it comes to the desired reality that I want engagement to come on my terms, I also now have a dedicated community day where I pour into the people who respond back to my newsletter or who watch my YouTube videos. And so overall, by making these two small changes, I feel like I have way more control over my mornings, and I feel a lot happier being a solopreneur because I feel more empowered and I feel like I have a lot more autonomy. Now, the second factor was mastery. And that's when you ask yourself, do you feel a healthy enough challenge towards your own personal improvement? And my current reality was growing on social media doesn't necessarily motivate me as much as it did 5 years ago when I didn't have a social media following. So naturally, when I didn't have a huge YouTube channel, when I didn't have a following on Instagram, when I didn't have XYZ, I was extremely motivated to push myself to grow and to master the skill of growing on a platform. But now I'm in a whole different season of my life where I don't prioritize that as much anymore because I am satisfied with the level of growth that I've achieved. And so my desired reality is no longer just solely focused on growing my vanity metrics, but instead, I'm ready for the next challenge. I'm ready to find something that I might not be the best at, but I feel really motivated to get better at. And so what is the solution here? And so I started brainstorming about other challenges that I could tackle in my life that would make me feel more aligned and more purposeful. And I realized that I want to get better at writing. I've always wanted to be an author. When I was younger, I would write short stories as a hobby. So knowing this, I decided, hey, I'm going to relaunch my newsletter. And so that's why I decided to start the Creator Journal, because this is an outlet for me to master the skill of writing. Not only this, I realized that rather than focusing on mastering growing my YouTube channel, I actually want to master getting better at talking authentically to the camera. So scripting a lot less, speaking authentically, not caring so much about what specific hook am I using or, am I retaining the audience? Now in this specific season of my life, I am more interested in being able to share my story as real and transparent as possible on camera, and for filming to be an effortless process. Now, the next category was purpose. Do I feel like my actions and my work align to a bigger meaning or a bigger goal? And my current reality was money and views don't motivate me as much as before. It doesn't mean that they're not important, but over time, they've ranked less and less and less in importance. And so I asked myself, what is my desired reality if money and views aren't the number one motivator, aren't my number one purpose like it was before when I first started my channel or when I first started my business? And so I realized that my desired reality is I actually want my videos to have meaning beyond getting views. I don't want my worth to be tied to whether or not someone watches my videos. And if people do watch my videos and they like my stories and they like my journey, then that's like a bonus for me. But it's not going to determine my worth and it's not going to determine whether or not I keep going. And so what is the solution? And so I thought about this, and I thought about when my grandma passed away last December. And I thought about how I really wish that she left a journal for me, or she left letters for me, or she left something of her life that I could learn from. Because I'm sure that in the course of my grandma's life, she probably had tons of lessons that she's accumulated. But because she lives all the way in Hong Kong and we didn't really have a relationship where we talked all the time, I never really extracted any of that type of life wisdom from her. And I think it's so beautiful that nowadays there's YouTube, there's technology. And so I thought about how when I make my videos now, I want to make sure that if my children or my grandchildren want access to my life stories and my life lessons, almost every single video, they're going to learn something. And that's also when I realized that even though I do sometimes enjoy talking about how to grow on social media, how to do a YouTube channel, how to get more followers, when I ask myself, are my grandchildren or my children going to benefit from that type of video? Most times the answer is no. Technology is always going to change. But lessons on authenticity, speaking your truth, having courage, how to get over social anxiety, how to find happiness, what is true happiness, those are the types of lessons that I feel are timeless. And so now when I'm thinking about making videos or when I'm filming, I think about legacy. Or let's say if I, God forbid, like leave this earth, then at least my brother has something that he can watch and remember me by, and that he can learn from, or that he can get wisdom from. And if there are strangers on the internet, if there are people around the world who also benefit from my videos in that way, that's a bonus. That's amazing. I'm grateful. But I no longer feel like it's healthy for me to tie my worth on whether or not someone I don't even know clicks my videos. And rather, I want to make videos that I can pass down from generation to generation. And so that is my purpose now. The next factor was curiosity. Curiosity is asking yourself, do you have an insatiable itch to learn more about your work? And so again, when I filled this out, I thought about my current reality and I realized I'm no longer curious about what other content gurus are doing, what other marketing gurus or coaches are doing. Whereas back then, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, I was all up in there. Like my algorithm was just filled with other online coaches, other digital course sellers, digital marketers. And I was constantly just like keeping tabs on what they're doing so that I can be able to share the latest trends with my audience and so that I can know what's going on in the industry. I had an insatiable curiosity about that type of industry back then. But now my reality is I'm not that curious anymore. Like I don't care as much anymore. And instead, I realized that I want to be more curious about writing, storytelling, how to have good conversation with people, because that's something that I feel I could be better at. Like I get terrified being interviewed on podcasts because I still feel like sometimes when I do podcasts, I have to prep really hard and I have to rehearse. And I would love to get to a stage where I know my experience so well and I know how to articulate it so well that I can go on any podcast and it feels natural and it's not like anxiety inducing and I get to be myself and the message gets across. I'm also curious about authenticity. What is authenticity? How do you teach authenticity? How come some people you can tell from watching their videos they're just so themselves and for other people you don't feel that same vibe? Like what is that difference? Those are the topics that I'm incredibly curious about. And so the solution is dive more into those topics, read more books on those topics, or start my newsletter so I can practice authenticity in a safer space that's beyond just YouTube. Maybe in the future, I start a podcast studio and I interview people, and that's the next chapter of how my content's going to evolve and it becomes more conversational. Now, last but not least is autotelicity, right? So do you love the activities that you do while you're working? So my current reality at the time when I was filling this out was I don't like spending a lot of hours giving editing feedback to my video editor. It made me feel a bit disconnected from the process, especially during this season where I really want to be more like in the roots and I want to be really in the feelings and I want to be in the process. Like I want to embrace this time period where I am a solopreneur, because there might be a time where I won't be a solopreneur and I'll outgrow this capacity. And I remember back then when I was a solopreneur, how I took these moments for granted. Because sometimes when you scale up your business, you get very disconnected from the process. You get very disconnected from your clients, from the people who watch your videos. And so I'm savoring this moment again of being solo. And I know how important it is now to like connect. And so my desired reality was I want to feel more connected to the process, because I know that this moment is fleeting. I may not be a solopreneur forever because of the size of my channel, because of, me starting another business. Like there is going to be a time where I need a team again. When I thought about the solution, I realized, you know what? How about I just simplify my videos? And for those of you who've watched my channel for years, you might have noticed that my last few videos are a lot more stripped down. It's talk to camera style. The editing is very minimal, and it's minimal because I'm editing my videos now. And I don't want it to be complicated to the point where I spend way too much time on the unnecessary. I want my videos to just share the heart of it without that much editing. And if someone needs over the top editing to enjoy my videos, then they might not be the right person for this channel, right? Like I can't please everyone. And it's been really great for me because I feel like ever since I took back the reins on editing and simplifying and stripping down my videos to its core message, I've been able to dedicate more time writing into engaging with my audience during my dedicated community days. I've been able to pour into other areas of my life, but also I just feel a lot more like in love with my videos. Even if they don't get a lot of views, even if I'm not talking about the most viral popular topic, like I just am proud of what I put out because I worked on it. And so all this to say, by doing this exercise, it helped me learn a few things. Number one, that I have way more control than I think I do. That when you work through a criteria such as this one, you're able to really get specific on what exactly doesn't feel aligned, because a lot of times you go through life, we're like, oh, this doesn't feel aligned, or oh, this feels off, and we don't really know what to do with that gut instinct. So having this exercise really gives you that clarity. And also doing this exercise teaches you a lot about yourself and what you value. And a lot of times when you have carrot on the stick goals, it really distracts you from finding yourself and from knowing yourself. Because you're tying your worth to objects, to things. You're tying your worth to things that might be at the helm of other people. You're tying yourself to the handbag you're wearing, the car that you're driving, the size of the house that you have, the amount of money that's in your bank account. And so by doing this, it kind of removes all of those distractions, and it asks you the fundamental question of what do you value? And if your current reality is not aligned with that value, then what can you do to change it? Anyways, I hope that me showing you my process of how I've been able to find more alignment in my life during this season has helped you. Remember to do something fearless today, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.